Looks like we are now live. Welcome everyone to episode 5 of season 5 of the Level Up Your Wealth podcast, where we talk about the gaming industry from a business perspective. One of your hosts, Marcus Howard, and we are also joined by Mario, our other host. Mario, say hello to everybody.
What's going on, y'all? Hope all is well. Another rainy day in Jacksonville. It always rains in northern Florida, but I'm here though.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, man. You coming from like an event?
Yeah, a board meeting. So I'm on the my alma mater, Tennessee State University. I'm on their foundation board. So we had to talk about how we could raise more money for the students.
Well, grassroots esports might be the solution, and there's no one better to talk to us about that than Brandon. Brandon, welcome to the show.
What's up, fellas? It's good to see you.
You've been working with Milwaukee Esports now, was it 4 or 5 years?
I mean, in my head, I think we're coming up on 5, but it's somewhere in that 4 to 5 range if I really did the math. I think it was either 2019 November or 2020 November. So, yeah, okay. It's been a little bit in some, it's kind of like dog years, right? I mean, like when you've been doing it like this, the time flies by. But, yeah, we've been having some fun.
That's awesome. And cool background, by the way. You have a bunch of arcade stuff, some Nintendo games I can recognize.
Oh yeah,
is that Pac-Man?
Oh yeah, Pac-Man. Yeah. We got Class of 1981, which has Pac-Man, Galaga, Road Rash, all of it. My original coming into this as a retro gaming enthusiast. I'm a big collector of the games I grew up playing, and so it's sort of comedic in a way that, I run an esports organization when my true passion lies in games that are probably circa 2006. So, it's just the way it goes, I suppose.
Do you have retro games at you just had a major event like last week. You have retro games there as well?
We didn't, but I've had some conversation with some of the other kind of bigger organizers around the country, and they have indicated to me that it would be wise to do so, because then they might even draw some people like myself. And I said, say less, as the kids would say. Don't need to be convinced. I will be glad to start to figure out a way to bring every manner of retro game I could. But we've stuck pretty, I would say, tightly to, I don't know the script, but to the communities that we know want the service we're offering. We have been just like head down focused on what they want and need to make sure we do that right. And so I look at probably the retro gaming component as more of like a nicety, an accoutrement that could drive some general attendance and gameplay, but we've been really focused on like our core market. So I would be so happy if I see an N64 there next year. But it's who's to say?
Nintendo 64. Oh, those were the days. Those were the days.
GameStop, I think now they just launched like a retro something, like retro shops are starting to launch those around the country. Yeah.
I believe it. Yeah, like I got into collecting kind of on a whim, I don't know, probably 6 years ago or so, and it became kind of a passion. And then, COVID hits, like everything, it all just goes nuts. So all of a sudden, you're trying to pick up your favorite N64 game. It's like $300 and you're going like, this is something strange has happened here. So, yeah, it's in a strange space as card collecting and all the rest is. But yeah, adjacent to me, I've got all the games kind of displayed and just something that can make you feel good. Because honestly, the music, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, and I'm sure not everybody cares, but the music, the graphics, 8-bit or whatever, man, if you were there, it's an immediate positive feeling, in my opinion. You just remember something pretty special. So I'm grateful for that.
It's like the nostalgia of the old games, right? It's like you feel like a kid again. Like I think like kids now, like when they just download it or it just pops up, like it's just a game, but like having to wait in line, having to go to the store and buy something, like you can't put a price on that. Like waiting for something to come out, then having to wait in line for it, then paying for it. Like you can't put a price on that anticipation. So.
Yeah. And I've always kind of joked like, hey, if the apocalypse hits, but we somehow have electricity, I'll be the most popular place around because I can still put that, regular NES in, blow the cartridge and play some, whatever. So if the internet stops, we'll all be screwed. But there we see. Now Marcus got it. I think I figured it out. One of my favorite jokes is like, how did we all know to do that? Like, I mean, it's like there was no internet. I mean, how did everybody know to do that? It was just kind of crazy. When I read that one time, I go, yeah, no kidding. I don't know. So anyway, it's funny.
So you had, your event was called Cream City Championships. What was the name of the event again?
Yeah, so Cream City Convergence was our recent tournament that we held, focused primarily on the FGC community and the Smash community. I kind of put them together, although they think of themselves oftentimes very separate, which is totally understandable. So yeah, we ran Tekken 8, Guilty Gear Strive, Smash Ultimate, Smash Melee, and Street Fighter 6 as our mains. And then we ran about 5 or 6 community games kind of on the side. And so, yeah, that was kind of our core product this year.
Is it okay if I go ahead? Sorry, Mario, go ahead.
No. You can share the screen. I was asking, like, how many participants did you guys meet your goals, exceeded your goals for this year?
Yeah, so we exceeded our goals. I mean, it's a really interesting space. I'll call it large tournament curation. There's a lot of, I'm not going to put myself in the subject matter expert category necessarily, because there are people with whose shoulders I am standing on to know what we know. But I would say year one, we had about 550 attendees, 100 spectators, somewhere in that 400 to 500 competitors range. This year we had about 800 competitors and 400 or so attendees. So we did eclipse kind of that 1,000+ mark and doubled year over year, which is super encouraging. We had a very positive thing happen in that we were selected as a Capcom Cup qualifying event, one of only 3 in the country. And so that was a really nice boon to us, being able to really accelerate kind of our attendance, not only regionally, but kind of from around the world. So, authentically, we have a really nice event and a really great trajectory. We were greatly aided by Capcom selecting us as one of the 3 events in the United States to be able to host the qualifier.
So I've got the recap video you shared earlier this week. If you don't mind, I'll play that, and then let's dive into what the conversation around, like, how do you become a qualifier, what kind of impact that had, all of that. I'm going to share this very quickly.
Welcome to the CBT Cream City Convergence Street Fighter 6 tournament. People, today we will crown a Cream champion.
Fly across the sky, looking down, and we dance in the rain to the sound of our hearts as the world it turns around, and we head towards the sun above the clouds. So we fly.
RKO coming in, bringing it out.
We're back to neutral.
134%. I'm back to make it. Slow King is your Cream City Convergence 2024 champion.
All the stars are rearranged. They write your name.
Boy, does he look like he's in the driver's seat. He's in the ignition. Okay, again. And there's the gonna get faded. Idol.
And it's a no-hitter. The Buzz takes Cream City Convergence.
So we jump into each other's arms.
Go low. He went low. Big Timo is your C3 2024 Tekken 8 champion.
We jump high, 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 high.
gets a command grab. It's a one-touch scenario. And another DP to do it.
A reversal, great answer, especially in that situation. Here we go, that dragon impact. Dual Kevin, if he can complete this combo, getting grabbed by the RD. Does anything can be it? Dual Kevin goes for the grand final resets. He can do it. Oh no, misses it.
The jumper he does. Now RD is your C3 champion. He will return to Capcom Cup Finals.
That's cool, man. I like the cheese head trophy. That's cool. That's
Oh
cool.
man, I can watch that video every day. It's just, I love it. So many fun emotions out of that, man. Thanks for showing that.
How long did it take you guys to prep for the event?
This year we actually launched. Registration began in February, which would be a 6-month lead time. So we tried to be, authentic. I would say intentional around that. And realistically, the why behind that is that it's a pretty busy schedule at this point around the country for events of this nature. There are a few behemoths that you really have to avoid. And then we've kind of been very, thoughtful about not wanting to overlap other events, because again, it's not a huge community of people doing this. And so we didn't want to take from others. And so that was kind of our thought process. And actually we are in the current process of finalizing, we basically had it finalized for 2025, but a couple loose ends as there's the big events as normal. But we're hoping to have August 30th, 2025 for next year, and to get that save the date out as far in advance as possible, because we just want to be, respectful to our community that, comes and pays and bees there so they can budget, as well as, again, to try to be copacetic with everything else happening around the country.
That's cool. That's cool. So sponsorships. So I know, of course, anytime you have sponsors, it kind of helps the pockets, right? So what are you doing for sponsorships, and how's that coming along?
Yeah, it's so for background, our organization, we operate in the venue space. We have a venue in downtown Milwaukee. We've got a collegiate league. We run a business-to-business conference. We're across, I would say, at this point, a fair amount of the spectrum of possibility in the world of esports. And so learning and understanding the role that sponsorships can play as a part of your business. I'm actually pretty proud to say we didn't have a single sponsor this year. And the reason I'll only share I'm proud of that is not to say, oh, we couldn't have, or, oh, there isn't merit, because of course it is so helpful. But one of my gripes at the moment is that just esports is built upon sponsorship, and it's such a problem in my opinion. It's too volatile, oftentimes not being delivered upon, the things that are promised, which then ruins relationships. And I know, Marcus, I'm preaching to the choir. You speak a lot of sustainability in the work that you do as well. So 85% of our revenue for the event is registration. And I'm happy about that, to be candid, because what I believe is when we put on a good product and we put out something that people can consume, that they'll want to consume it again. And so that's a real reoccurring revenue base that you can build projections on and build expenses on. And by expenses, I mean paying volunteers, paying staff, the normal things that go into doing any discipline of work that typically esports is just saying, well, we hope that this will happen. And then you got a bunch of people not getting paid. So that's the primary driver for us is registration, which I'm excited about. And then we dabble and have really increased in the vendor side, which is a really nice piece of the equation, because they come in, they make money, they want to come back, we charge a reasonable rate, and now we have additional recurring revenue. So we're at the point with that event in particular that certainly there would be merit to having sponsors, and I certainly think we'll open up that dialogue as makes sense. It's a little different, to be honest with you, than let's call our B2B conference, the Wisconsin Esports Summit. We work with Corsair, CDW, the big dogs, right? They want to be there because they're familiar with that model. B2B, right? You got the vendors, you've got the panels. This is something they're fluid in their own industries. The fighting game community and tournaments like this, it's really not a known entity to them. And there's a reason for that. From a programming lens, the people are there to play the game. They're really not looking to engage and hear or see, a message from a major sponsor. That's my experience. So realistically, until I feel like we can solve the exposure reality. I should mention, I'm not selling digital exposure. We reached millions of people, and that's great. but I need to sell tangible results. And a lot of times just viewership is not going to be the answer to really drive any sort of ROI meaningfully. I don't mean to be like shooting the whole industry down here, but it's just the truth. And so, until I feel that we can really create a return on investment for a sponsor on site, we're just not going super hard at that. So I think it will happen, and we'll be grateful for it because, as we all know, man, that certainly helps your bottom line because the margins are razor thin. But that's kind of our current status of how we've been operating.
That's dope.
That's awesome. You've been able to have that success without the sponsorship. And I agree with you. I think, the business is beholden to wherever the revenue is. So if revenue is from sponsors, as an esports organization, most organizations will cater to sponsors. And I use that term, I guess, generously because we know that a lot of sponsors aren't getting their ROI back from the dollars spent. And many times the sponsorships are kind of in conflict or at conflict with the community. It's not something that the community wants. It's only something that the organization wants because the organization is looking for the dollars. Yeah. So I think it's great that you are investing in the experience for your customers, your end users, and then again for the vendors, the small and medium businesses. The title of this episode is Grassroots Scaling Down to Scale Up, right? You understand grassroots success more than most. And when you're doing that, like you said, you give a reason for the customers, your end users, the players to come back every year, and a reason for the small businesses to come back. And then eventually, you start to get larger and larger, smaller businesses. So you, as like you said, ideally at one point, just a larger brand to be a part of your ecosystem.
Yeah, and what's been an interesting development, I would say, over the course of the business is that we started out really trying to say, hey, we're the Milwaukee Esports Alliance in the southern Wisconsin area is really what we know primarily. Milwaukee, Madison, kind of to Chicago was our triangle. And then it was so quickly seen that, hey, the state of Wisconsin could use a resource like this. So we've always kept our name, but realistically at this point, we try to serve the state as an entity that's a connective tissue and that is able to do the things that the community asks for, so long as we're able to do it in a sustainable way is the priority, right? We need to make this happen, sustain, and be profitable. Like we're a business unapologetically. But what's been so kind of wild to see over that same evolution nationally and in other places is I actually think our steadfastest to not scaling has been one of the greatest benefits to our growth. And I kind of speak to that now because we have real meaningful relationships with both the sponsors who are so gracious to help us in our other capacities, or just honestly, the colleges, the high schools. Like when you simply say, hey, we're launching the Wisconsin Esports Conference, it's a collegiate esports ecosystem, and we're only doing Wisconsin. Well, when you have relationships with 28 of the college coaches and you go to them personally and say, we'd love if you'd be open to participate in that, they raise their hands and say yes. If we said, hey, now we're the Midwest, and this is of no offense to all those wonderful groups that are doing that Midwest and doing whatever, like we've just found tremendous, I would say, success in just staying where we are and just saying, we're going to try to win here and we are from here. So let's all win together if we can. And it's just been a really interesting development because I wouldn't try to say, oh, I was like prophetic in that want. It was just, I was like, I'm too old. I'm not trying to scale. This ain't VC funded. Like, I don't got any time for all that. Like, I'm trying to make a real revenue producing business today that can employ people and provide money to the ecosystem. And let's just try to do that in Wisconsin. So I appreciate your sentiment. And it's really true for us that we're staying so dedicated to our state. And we're seeing that pay dividends, and that, I want to say 80% of our attendance was from 4 states, even with a Capcom Cup qualifier, which got us, 30 states, 7 countries attendance. Like our core base is Midwest, and we hope that we can continue to serve that core base very well. And if our event caps out for that purpose, that's great. Like we will be grateful to serve however many they can, not at risk of pontificating. The other thing I will say though, since we talk about the economics, the only reason that is viable is because of partnerships with the big venue. The Baird Center is the largest venue in the state of Wisconsin, the most premier destination literally in the state, downtown Milwaukee. If they charged us the full rate, we'd be toast, right? And so it's like, because of partnerships, because of Visit Milwaukee, because of these groups who believe in what we're working on, we're able to not have to, be just screwed financially, right? I mean, because these are $200,000 a day places. And so I always like to mention that as well, because sometimes people see or hear and they go, how is that possible? Like, we're transparent. We're an open book. Like, this is what it is taking for us. and would love, if others around the country see that and go, hey, I wonder about what we could do. So that's something I always feel like I want to mention, because sometimes when people just go out and say, oh, look at us, look at the good things we've done, it's like, what's really happened here? Like, how did this happen? And is it going to come back? So try to always keep it real that way.
So that the business model of being basically local first, do you think that can be adopted in other places, or you think just because you have the partnerships that you cultivated so well that it's working for you, but it might not work for other regions of the country?
I think realistically, it takes the right people at the right time. I mean, I'm older, and prior to this, I had a lot of success in the region with different business initiatives. So making some of those connections came, I would say, more quickly than probably other instances when you're starting from scratch and you're just sort of trying to bootstrap and figure it out. So I do think we had an advantage in that regard, like came in well capitalized and ready to try to do some things intentionally. However, I genuinely believe an organization like ours could be applicable across a lot of different places, realistically. I mean, and I think it would, no matter what, serve the community well, as long as that base effort is be the connective tissue, create the opportunities for people to work together. The only reason Creep City Convergence happened is I had 3 different groups all coming to me saying, hey, we got this idea about doing a big tournament. And I'm going, well, how about instead of everyone trying to do this at the same time in different cities, why don't we do one big thing and all come together as a group? So we were benefited by that type of collaboration. And so I think it could happen. I would not want to be disingenuous by saying I think everyone could probably move as quickly or have that type of immediate response. Takes the right market size. Milwaukee's a pretty big market. You're going to need a major market. You're going to need places that have major players. And then you got to kind of read the room, right? Are they drinking the Kool-Aid on this esports opportunity, right? Like, do they believe or see it? And then, have they heard other things? And so and again, I'll give Marcus all the credit because he speaks to this all the time and things that I see about, let's not bullshit, right? Like, I don't want to go sell smoke and mirrors to my local CVB because I got to really make a relationship with them work. What do they want? Tourism. They want hotel tax dollars, people in rooms. And so if we can't deliver that, then it's a short lifespan, right? So I think it's a great question. And to me, a couple of unique factors, but I do think most places could do it. I think a little bit bigger urban areas probably have a better chance just because of the density of people. Our venue, we're getting 80 to 100 people at our local each week. And it's like, that's some of the top in the country that I'm aware of, but we're next to 2 colleges. We're doing it grassroots, right? And it's like, that's not going to happen in a small area. It's just not. There just simply aren't enough people, and you're not going to be able to be financially viable. So that's kind of my thinking at the moment.
But major metropolitan areas, generally speaking, should be able to adopt that model. And I say that with a grain of salt because I wasn't able to do it here in Tampa.
Well, that's what I mean. It's kind of like right time, honestly. You got to have city leaders. You got to have advocates. I mean, through and through, and really not just. I hate to be so cynical, but it's dollars. Because even if you've got the right talent, you got to have the right people who are willing to help the economics work. Because let's be real, the esports economics are just ass. They just are, man, across so many different capacities, right? We're projecting out for next year, and I'm telling the team, listen, I hope that we get benefited by Capcom again. What incredible partners that helped us as a booster. Let's assume we don't, because that's pretty rare air. Our economics are going to be about flat. Is everybody prepared for that? Now, it's a little harder thing for me because I quantify my dollar per hour value very highly. Others who are younger and in that growth phase of their career are willing to do things at a discount or for free because of passion. I am not. So, where we might break even, that means I lose $30,000, right? So it's like that I think is very relevant as well. That that's an established event. I mean, you just saw the big house, the guy in Michigan, just packed up, said, hey, I've had a great ride, but it's too difficult. And he had 3,000 people. So that's just on one spectrum of this conversation, but I do think it's relevant.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like I said, here in Tampa Bay, I had some success in the St. Pete part of the Tampa Bay market. And actually, I was going to open my own kind of esports STEAM learning center. I was thinking kind of a mix between like a Dave and Buster's and what's the name of that place? It's been so long since it happened. I have the PTSD. I can't remember remember it, but I can't think of the name of the place where it was like a whatever. Anyway, it was, I had gotten a grant, not a grant. I submitted a proposal to the city. The city approved it. So I have the lease here somewhere in my office. Since I've moved rooms all the time, I can't find it. But I had the lease. I personally couldn't afford the lease, and so I was trying to build almost like a WeWork for the gaming industry. So some gaming and esports companies, let's all chip in. Then we can bring in a sponsor, some larger tech companies, the school, and that piece of it just never came together. You know, I went and tried to talk to the mayor. I talked to a bunch of VC funds. I talked to Mario. I don't know if you know of Synapses, the statewide, innovation conglomerate, if you will, ecosystem stakeholder, and I just couldn't get the pieces together. So even though I'm here, Derek's here, we had the talent, we had the network, the domain expertise. We didn't have the other pieces that you need. So I hear 100% what you're saying, Brandon.
Yeah, and to be honest, I've tried to avoid pretty much all that if possible. If possible, because there's so much red tape and it's so much spike in revenue. But then it's like, to me, and I say this, I think now, having earned some of it through our different enterprises, like, if you're not willing to pay for the product, then the product won't exist. And that is the cultural point right now we're at with esports. So if people aren't willing to pay for what they want, then it's not going to exist. We certainly won't provide it. And there's always a cheaper option is kind of one of my pet peeves about this at the moment, because there's always, no offense, some 19-year-old kid who's got opinions, who's out there ready to start something. And it's like, there's not enough barrier to entry in that reality. And okay, I want people to be entrepreneurial too, but sustainability wise, we've seen time and time again how that fails. So I think we're trying to really just build it on about the most basic model possible. And I see there's a comment on LinkedIn about the model. Like, we are trying to do as much as possible by operating it pretty cleanly. I will not lie. We have been advantaged by relationships. We've been advantaged by positive lease rates. Those have been winning things that have worked for us that, are very volatile and could change. But I think that's just ultimately what the community has to decide. Are you going to pay for these services? Are you going to pay for these people's time? And yeah, when you keep it small, I think there's success. But we have those things you were working on, I think, are oftentimes necessary. And in my opinion, though, oftentimes it happens too, is then you're kind of lumped into that pool of other techie things that are trying the same. And, if gaming doesn't have a pathway to like profitability, they kind of go, well, maybe we'll go over here for some other, STEM tech, this, that, or the other. And, I get it.
That other business I was thinking about was Discovery Zone. I don't know if you ever went there.
Yeah. So because the esports is not dying, but definitely not as popular per se as it was years ago, could it be a way that you can kind of bottle this, or like create like some type of curriculum or some type of support group to other individuals that's trying to grow their communities like you are, to kind of help the local other communities?
Possibly. I will say that, like, when I kind of started looking at doing some publishing, which I know, Mark, because you had your book too, right? Like, publishing becomes a thought, and then the speaking and all the rest, right? Like, these are the revenue models that someone can try to pull, the levers, I should say. I am hopeful or optimistic that we can continue to showcase a model around what a regional alliance type of entity can provide. And I certainly would be happy to give that information to others around the country. Like, from my lens, I would charge for it because this planet don't do anything for free. But I think certainly could be relevant. But you've heard throughout this, even now, I just would have to be very upfront about, a lot of dominoes have to fall. You have to be willing to wait it out. I haven't pulled $1 from this, and it's like everything is being reinvested into things. I have that luxury. I understand that is not a luxury most have. So it's like I just, again, have to be authentic about, here's where our situation is. I think we've seen some of the positives that can occur when you continue on, right? We had an excellent meeting today. You think you got a pulse, right? Sometimes when I'm probably thinking we got something good going on here, I'm like, I know everything that's going on. I got a feeling for it. Then I get a message out of the blue from our Boys and Girls Club. Hey, we've got a recreational league going on, 15 facilities, and a lot of teenagers that are playing. We'd love to partner. And it's like, what? When did that happen, right? I talked to your president 3 years ago. Nothing was going on. All of a sudden, now you got 15 facilities. And you're going, That's great
Yep.
news, right? But really, the only reason that we get that is because we're around, because we've been around for 4 or 5 years, because the word gets out, because news and different things happen, and half the battle, in my opinion, is just be there, just continue to be a resource, continue to advocate for people, and it seems like positive things will happen, right? So, like, yeah, I'd like to take a lot of credit for a success model, but a lot of wins have been through attrition, just simply being a continued, available, authentic resource. And so we would love to do that for others around the country that have interest. And I've had a couple outreaches from some folks in Alabama and others. Most of it comes out of college, like people working at a college. I mean, it's kind of like the NACAD model, right? I mean, and that's okay. I probably am advocating for more entrepreneurial endeavors if I can, just because, again, it's a little cleaner. Once a university owns it or is involved with it, it's kind of got some weird roots, in my opinion. But that's where half of anybody is right now, because that's the only place there's money. So, like, it kind of makes sense, in my opinion.
Yeah, and back to that comment from Luke, and I did see that video as well. It was like 45 minutes. Definitely worth the watch if you haven't seen it. And he says, I saw an interesting video on Modern NBA about esports. It seems to be a very broken way esports is working. So it's interesting to see new ways to make the company work in North America. Hopefully it finds more viability. And specifically what that video is talking about is that basically tier 1 esports is broken. So anything basically venture capital backed, which again, Brandon and myself and several others have been warning about that for a number of years and more or less have been ignored. And so now we see what's happening. And so what I agree with what Brandon is saying is that, the grassroots efforts in local communities is where we can find that viability. I believe in kind of a crowdsourced, I want to call it a sustainability blueprint. I was working with University of Kentucky a couple of years ago, and I had a plan. I think I might have even invited you to speak at the time, Brandon, for like an esports sustainability summit that at first I wanted to host in person, but then oddly enough, like I did a poll on LinkedIn and like 30% of the people had voted no, those people who were in the ecosystem, who were at VC funded esports startups. So I guess there wasn't enough of an incentive from the ecosystem, from market forces for people to think it was important. It was an unpopular opinion at the time. It's still somewhat unpopular. But I say all that to say, I agree with you. My intent was that anybody who paid to attend the conference, and there was ways to make that free, but anybody who attended the conference would get the blueprint for free. The goal was for us, all of the thought leaders, yourself included, and others from different sectors of esports, to kind of work together and think tank, put this blueprint together, make it free for everybody who attended, and anyone who didn't attend, because there were opportunities to attend for free, especially virtually, would have to pay for it. And in that way, we could create funding that would go back into grassroots communities, as opposed to what we've seen recently, where $60 million overseas was invested into basically the same organizations that created the last bubble, that created the last collapse. We're not going to go back into that. We had a whole episode about it. But
Nice. Okay.
I believe in investing in grassroots esports communities, is what I mean to say.
Yeah. And you know what? Honestly, like another factor is it's okay for people to make money in esports. Like, I think that's something people need to get over as well. Like, it's okay for people to have a business, to have a job. I mean, we work with so many people that are doing this on the side, that are getting 18 an hour for 10 hours a week. That's not how you sustain a family, a living wage. I mean, we gotta figure that out, because that's going to be the death knell of all of it. And it is interesting. I stay out of the tier 1 conversations because I just don't care. What it needs to exist, there needs to be a pathway. Any professional, real industry needs multiple levels of engagement. So tier 1 to me is highly critical. So I don't look at it with a gift, like, or with an eye on, oh, you're bad. The model's awful. That's fine. But I don't blame them. They're saying this has been a model. Let's try and replicate it with our core audience. And that core audience thus far has not responded in the ways that are needed to finance the endeavor. So I don't wish like bad things on it at all. I just I can't worry about it. So I just stay head down and just say, and I mean, again, it's part of the value. I don't care really what happens anywhere else, and I don't want to worry about it. I got meetings with people. Should we start an esports team? No, but if you want to talk about it, then let's work out the economics. And I can promise you, if you think merch is involved in the profit model, you're screwed. If you think streaming revenue is involved, you're screwed. So then you're back to the same tenets of any event. So now you're just basically an event parading as a team. And so, you just kind of go through the mechanics of everything, which again, thankfully through all of our different endeavors now, I've gotten into the weeds on pretty much damn near any possible way to make money in esports. And so it's just helpful to say, okay, like, let's just be real about what it is now. And then we can try to go forward and make a plan. And if you can't, then that will have broader implications. But go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. So you think really the only way to make money right now in esports is kind of doing what you guys are doing? Because we did episode a few weeks ago about millions of dollars being pumped in overseas and how it's just going to crash and burn eventually. So, like, what are your thoughts about how to bring esports back and how people can actually make money and make a living and have a full-time job in esports and provide for their family?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that they're at a certain level, what is happening in those bigger contexts is a model. It's happening not only in our industry, but a bunch of others. Do I think it's sustainable? Do I think most will lose and some will win? Yes, but I actually don't think that's bad. That's just not meant for everybody. And it always feels to me like the writing's kind of, you see it. I just saw some guy, Clinton Sparks. I have no idea who dude is, but somehow he keeps on showing up on my news feed. And homie's like, I'm new, right? He's like, I'm different. I'm about to do it different. All right, man, buckle up. Let's see. I mean, so like, good, great. Like if people want to go out and say, I'm the new best thing you've ever seen and we're about to blow it up with celebrities and the rest. Okay. Usually that seems to crash and burn, but like it could work. And I hope you're the dude. I hope you are that dude. I hope you're him, right? Like, so have at it. But to me, if you want to have a successful quote at this point, I'm really bullish on FGC. And honestly, I don't even know that it's a sustainable living wage, but you have a community that seems inclined to pay for their experience at some level. And thus far, you do not have that in literally any other title, right? Rocket League, Valorant, Overwatch, any of them. None of them have a paying community, period. So you've got basically Smash Ultimate and Melee, which that's a whole different thing. Bless their hearts. Wonderful things. They will pay, but it's got its own community. And then you've got, I think, the sort of leading bellwether ones, the Street Fighters, the Tekken 8s, the Guilty Gears, 2XKO. Like, these are people who say, I want to sit next to someone and I'd like to play. I get better when I do that. I like doing that. And you know what? I'm willing to pay you to orchestrate it. Right now, it's still not living wage money, but it's something. It is something to say your time is exchanged for resources to continue on the project. So I think that's one route. Our venue is doing well, but we have a favorable lease rate. We have a community that was built over a period of 3 years, grassroots as it gets, bringing PS5s to bars in a car every week that we gave a place to do business. You couldn't pay me otherwise to open a venue unless it was subsidized public-private partnership. There's just simply no model. I'm in the inside baseball of this. Like, I've seen it now. I see how much it costs to buy the titles, how much the chairs cost, how much all of it, and you're done. I mean, it's just, there is no model for profitability in esports venues, period. I don't mean to piss anybody off who's out there with esports venues, but that's it, man. Like, it doesn't exist today. So, and like, we had Danny up from Exposure a couple of years back. I love Danny. He's probably doing it as well as anyone I know. He's in Dallas. That helps, and he's brilliant. I don't mean to take anything away from his enterprise and what they've built, but that is so layered and so professionally run. It is one of one, right? I think there's some kid down in Miami I saw with Rocky Sports or something like this. Looks like a beautiful venue. Seems like a good kid. Seems like a good head on his shoulders, putting the right vibes out there. Now you just got to hope it activates. But like, day to day, you got to have a lot of people walking in your venue. And I've visited them all over the country. Like, it's a tough go, man. So I try to be transparent about that too. Like, you are in a tough spot if you're trying to operate an esports venue right now. We've got a couple in Wisconsin that have been trying to make it go, and bless their hearts too, man. It's a tough game. It really is.
Some nationwide ones close.
It's tough.
Those, it's tough. It's what's difficult is competing against free, right? So you're asking someone, and I'm sure that you do this very well, but generally speaking, if you have a venue, you're saying, hey, you're sitting at home on your couch eating your free food. Why don't you take your free time and travel to this other location and pay for the same experience that you're getting for free?
Yeah.
Yep. And, and again, so that's what I'm bullish on. I think is a great question, Mario. How could you make money just on that topic? I think, understanding the niche elements, right? So we paid for production. We paid for streaming. We brought some of the best in the country around, paid for hotels, paid them an hourly rate. Hey, they made money off of our event, and that's great. That's how it should be. Nobody should be coming in out of the kindness of their hearts. to do these things, and so those are needs and very, rarely served. And so, yeah, I think there's ways, but you do get into the more technical things that you can make money doing anything. I mean, videographers, right? I mean, they got work. And so, what we benefit from, a lot of people seem to love video games. They love the space, they love the people, they love the gameplay, so they love how it looks. So I'm bullish. The thing, and maybe you all have talked about it, the thing that I am sort of putting out there as a thought track is right now, when everyone speaks to the bullishness of esports, it's predicated upon a belief of more. It's predicated on a belief of more people will play video games, just inevitably, younger generations. So it's kind of like population theory, right? You can keep on building more apartments when there's more population. If we ever tip a scale or start seeing data that the actual esports play or gaming population is decreasing, that'll be kind of a reckoning for real, because I think we've probably got 5 to 10 more years of Scholastic still growing, just out of the nature of needing it to grow. Colleges are going to they're going to leave. Colleges are going to change, but in the colleges that stay, I think you'll see growth because they see it as a scholarship, a revenue driver. So I think there'll still be some growth that way, and then hopefully some of this maturity in the industry can help steward that. And then you got to think, like, we talked N64, right? Like, what we all remember nostalgically for playing in that regard. Now we really do start to have a generation of people who played esports, who were collegiate competitors, who have their core memories locked in an esports endeavor. I believe they will start to, matriculate into wanting that to continue when they're 30, when they're, like, just the same way I like having my N64 around. So I think once that happens too, we'll have some sustainability. So I'm going on, but there's some thoughts there.
Yeah, it's like video games is the one thing that everybody wants to do, but like it's very hard to monetize it. It's we all play games, right? But it's how can we? Well, we know the people who create the games make the money, but like how can the people that build the infrastructure, build the communities, make the money? And that's the missing piece, I think, in video games as a whole.
Well, and hell, man, are they 20,000 layoffs in game dev? So something's gone astray. I mean, I don't know. I really try to stay out of that space, but it's like, one has to pay attention when it's their livelihood. But like, I mean, it doesn't seem to be a rosy picture there either. So I don't know. I try to keep my head down because there's too much conflicting information. GTA 6. When I saw GTA 6, I'm like, all right, how can we take it? Oh my God! Like, what is that game going to be? It's going to be insane. It's going to be insane. Yeah. It's like, can I run an esports league inside of GTA 6? Like, I don't know, man. Like, that's the cultural zeitgeist stuff that is exciting to think about. Because literally, there's only so many things in the world that capture the population. I mean, seriously, like, that is insane. So I think it's beholden on some of us that are in this space and that have been around it and that are doing, integrity-driven things to figure out how to take advantage of that, and in so doing, hopefully find a way to continue to earn revenue. And that's what I think will have to be, whether it's 2XKO, GTA 6, better, bigger things to come, but to figure it out somehow.
Brandon, what do you think about doing consulting for local businesses, right? So right now you have vendors who come to your event because they recognize there is value, commercial business value, their core business value in engaging with the gaming community. I have a philosophy, a theory that because video games are the most engaging form of consumer and social media, and 97% of Fortune 500 and 77% of small businesses rely on social media, that over the next 20 years, we'll see the same adoption of game-driven brand engagement that we've seen in the last 20 years with game-driven, social media-driven brand engagement. So with that, like, do you see consulting from MKE to at least starting with those local businesses to show them how they can leverage, like, reimagine their brand engagement with gaming?
It's a smart move because it's where the money is. So first and foremost, I think it's probably an appropriate move for the more mature or advanced esports person, right? You know your stuff, you've seen the models. I think the two paths we've pursued with that are on facility development. So, right, we're a part of 3 or 4 facilities being built in Scholastic or in neighborhood areas, right? Like people saying we want to provide this to underserved communities because we would like to have them have what everyone else has, right? So okay, so you've got an opportunity there to just be the common resource, like know how to do it, aren't charging $100,000 to $50,000 rates, which are floated out there, right? Like charging a manageable rate for the program and local. So I think that's one path. On the corporate side, retention and recruitment, that's it. I mean, those are the big words, right? And so we can and have shown a couple larger businesses in Milwaukee how to integrate gaming into their, either one-off events or into some leagues. I think if you really, had some VC money, wanted to give something a real go, creating corporate gaming leagues is probably the way for some of the bigger companies in the country. Like you could just run literally internal leagues for them, be the TOs for them, Mario Kart, who knows, right? So I think that could be very lucrative as well as very valuable, but I think it'd be tough. And I think it'd be, you'd have to have another software in to likely like make it go. So that I think, yes. And then the one that for us has actually also been a really nice lever is just integrating into conferences and events, right? So we did a tournament down in Orlando not long ago where they're like, hey, we're doing an international conference for a company headquartered out of Milwaukee. And they're like, will you guys make it? We're like, sure. So we brought down PS5s, we, hooked them up to the projectors at Disney World or wherever it was. And they paid us to be that. So again, events are wonderful. You got big companies throwing international conferences. What we ask to charge is pennies, right? But it's meaningful to our community. So that's how we've engaged with the corporate community at this point. And again, we haven't really gone for philanthropy. We haven't really hit any of our big dog companies at this point, the Harleys, the Northwestern Mutuals. Like maybe someday that would be wonderful. But again, you do that and then it breaks. So I think what you're describing is great. But the consulting would be around retention and recruitment. It would be around how do we integrate gaming into the fabric of your company in a way where you believe it will help you attract talent or it will help you not lose good talent. And that looks different depending on the company. And there's honestly only so many companies that have the money for that. So it would probably come out of HR, right? And it comes out of them saying, hey, we were going to go do a safe room, but like instead, why don't we have a Mario? You'd love this. I brought an N64 into a client who was having a golf tournament, and people from all over the country are flying in for this golf tournament, charity golf tournament kind of thing. And I was like, why don't we just do a hole-in-one challenge on Mario 64 and put it in your headquarters, and we'll do it on Google Drive tracker for closest to the pin and like best out of 2 rounds. They're like, love it. We had like, I don't know, 60, 80 people play. Everyone's watching, right? That's fun. That's creative.
Yeah.
It's only a day, but it gives people the chance to like have a digital component to if they don't like to golf. And so that's the kind of stuff I think can be cool. But again, that company reached out to me and they're Fortune 500. So oftentimes I'll say esports can be wonderful because we're not at the point yet where it feels like you're going upstream without a paddle. Much of just being around, there's value that comes to you because, they want to know more about it. So we're at a nice place, in my opinion, that way, just with the national kind of like, what is that esports thing? Or my grandkids play a lot of the video games. So we're kind of in that sweet spot, in my opinion.
What I know we talked about this a few weeks ago as well. Like, what do you think about colleges? Like, people are asking for money, and we think over time that money is going to dry up. Like, what do you think colleges can do to embrace esports more?
We're in an interesting position. Like I said, we're launching the Wisconsin Esports Conference here, where registration is open. I think we're going to have about 27 Wisconsin colleges participate the first year, which is really encouraging. I think that from my experience with that endeavor, they can, like everyone else, start out or at least get to a place of authenticity with their intention and make it known and publicized. If it's a recruiting play, call it a recruiting play and then provide the best experience possible to recruit players to it. To have a program that is branded as something else when it is only a recruiting play eventually just leads to transition in the coaching, and then that leads to poor performance and all the rest. So I think there's great opportunity. I hear statistics like, the largest swath of students no longer attending 4-year universities or 2-year are 18 to 22-year-old males, right? And it's like, well, hell, I got something for you, right? So like there's an opportunity that gaming provides you from a recruitment perspective that nothing else will. And so I think there's opportunity there. But I also think and higher ed is a whole nother thing. You need to invest in it, and you have to probably have a 3 to 5 year investment threshold of understanding. And I'm not sure really more than 10. Like, there are so few universities right now operating from that position of strength that I think it's like we're just going to see the attrition of the universities in general. But I'd say we're kind of at the top at the moment. I mean, there's belief that there's just going to continue, and maybe it will. But I can only first speak for Wisconsin. We've got 39 colleges in the state. 33 of them have programs. So, if 6 more of them just feel left out, I imagine they'll come on at some point. But when they reach out to us, and many do when they're creating new programs now, which is another one of those positive effects, we go like, here's a template for what you might think about budget wise, and they're like, holy shit. And it's like, hey, like, you can do it for way cheaper. Let's be real. Anything can be bootstrapped, but like, you're telling me you'd like this. You'd like recruits. You need to prove to a provost that this will cash flow. As well, it should be asked. That should be a question you're asking. Like, here's how it's going to have to look. Here's what you're going to have to think about. Here's which titles you can compete in. And so, like, for our part, for WEC, we love the NECC. We love the national leagues. Like, nothing. There's no anything against them. Our community was saying, gee, we don't have a lot of local lands. Like, no one really cares about us. We're in the West Coast time frame, or the ping rate's bad, or our time. And, people are forfeiting from all over the country. You don't even know who they are. So we're like, cool, let's create a captive community. Everybody knows each other. Like, we're going to highly police it. Like, any of this toxicity, no luck. Like, you're not going to be in our league. Like, that's just too old for that shit. So, like, when you have that, then you have kind of, I think, what will be that, no, I really enjoyed collegiate esports. Wonderful experience. I won the, Rocket League Cup, right? I got the big trophy. I was on the stage. I think I want to get a job in esports, or I think I'd like to start something. But when it's like, no LAN, just like Peter Pitter out, I'm the Division 3, whatever champion. No one in my school cares. No one even knows what it is. That's what we're kind of trying to solve for. So, good opportunity, but it, like many other things, we're going to have to kind of have some come to Jesus moments on like what the market wants. And many are trying very hard to do that. So again, I think it's laudable, all of the efforts going on, and the economics are awful. They're just awful.
So I know we're up on time. So my last question. So like, I saw last week that like more males in between 18 and 50 are doing actually more, putting money in sports betting and betting than actually investing in the stock market. So so if it's a way for people like to bet on esports tournaments, like, do you think that'll drive more money, more awareness, and more people to do esports, which might help the community grow?
A great question. I'll be candid. I will avoid esports betting like the plague. There will never be a time, if I can avoid it, that I will try to get into esports betting. And it's probably an old school way of thinking, because I understand that it's really infiltrated and been a part of now all sports, collegiate, everything. I get it. And who doesn't like to bet on things? And so this isn't like any sort of holier than thou opinion. When I first got into this, I was hearing commentary of match fixing in CSGO in Europe. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this is insane how easy that likely is. And I'm going, I think I invested in Gamble and lost a shitload of money on that publicly traded train wreck, right? So it's like, I think that it's a fine narrative, but it really, if you want to get into the philosophical part of it, I don't know, man. Like, it just starts to sort of like create cracks, I think, in an already exposed industry, when particularly if you're talking about a younger age group, of like scholastic, collegiate, etc. I get a little nervous. I just do. And again, I'm not really a political part of it, all the esports World Cup, all the rest. There is money in it, but boy, I would love to avoid having that be a critical revenue pillar compared to, we like this, we're paying to do it. Like, we just have to get to that point. That's just my humble belief. So I don't know if that helps answer the question, but that's sort of where my head is on at the moment, is that I just feel it could cause more harm than good. But I could be wrong. I'm not talking to DraftKings. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that happens. So.
Yeah, this major business. It's definitely an emerging market in the esports space. But I agree. That's a fine line to walk, and we've already seen some issues with integrity and and ethics in the space. I think, putting gambling and youth in the same space, a lot of the issues we have now is that especially tier 1 organizations don't know who their audience truly is. Like,
Sure.
they can say they have 20 million people in their community or 1 billion people in their community. They can't identify like the subset of demographics for that community.
Yeah.
So it's just really kind of dangerous to introduce things that are only for the 18 and up group when you don't know like who is in the 18 and up and who is 13.
Yeah, and again, to be fair, I would not blame anyone, because if you're got a family to feed and you're trying to do the job, I mean, energy drinks, gambling, hell, you're gonna go whatever direction you can go. So that's where I say I hold no holier than thou opinion on all this. Like, people got to figure out what they got to figure out. People going to the Esports World Cup, there's all uprising about that, blah blah blah, right? But like, this is what it is right now. So like, and I don't want to like, I don't know, I'd have to think more about my personal stance on all of that. But like, it's a tough market, man. People got to do what they got to do. I just hope that we can do it with guardrails. I mean, listen, I love college football. NIL has caused the billion upon billion dollar industry to be in a complete train wreck. I mean, like, so there's a lot going on right now we're trying to figure out, and betting, I think, is a part of that. So great question, but that's sort of where my head is on at the moment, is that probably wouldn't be on our roadmap in any near future if we could avoid it.
Okay, I've got one more question, and then we definitely will let you get back to your family.
Yeah,
What's on the horizon for MKE? You've got 6 or 7 pillars for the ecosystem as a whole. What are you looking forward to the end of the year, into next year?
Yeah, I think my big push right now is smoothing out revenue versus the volatility and spikes. That's a big initiative. So we're trying to plan and create, honestly, things that kind of happen at different times of year. When I first came into this, my big thing was, it's cold here 6 months out of the year. We got to play more video games. Like, y'all got it nice down to Florida. But I'm looking forward to the WEC LAN events, right? So we've got our state championship in December. Just seeing that all play out. It's both terrifying and exciting. We've got a very robust, experienced staff, but first year of anything has always got its ups and downs. So excited and nervous for the reality of that. We've got the Wisconsin Esports Summit in March coming up, which is always a fun event. And so that's a big one. We haven't announced it yet, but we got a pretty big new event that'll be happening next May with a big partner that I think is going to create some great exposure opportunities. And so, I think the event side is exciting. I'm optimistic the venue can continue to serve its need to the community it serves. And then, we've got a few facilities coming online. Like, I look at things very positively. I'm an optimistic guy. So I see a lot of great partnerships coming through, events that are gaining steam, and it feels unmanageable, but that's how everything is. But as long as we stay tight to our group, that's led us through so far, is just saying, this is it. This is what we're going to do. So that's kind of where I'm headed.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Before you leave, where can people find you, follow you, support all the work that you are doing and your ecosystem is doing?
Yeah, thank you for putting the plug in. I would say, Milwaukee Esports Alliance is the organization. You can find us on every social media, if you should be so inclined, on Instagram and Twitter and all the rest of things, just MK Esports, typically on most of those. So certainly, follow. But I always encourage, part of the reason I think we've won is I've tried to make myself really accessible. And so if people want to reach out, it's Brandon@mkeesports.com. Shoot me an email. I'll try to make time to have a conversation, because I find, and you do the same, Marcus, you've always been a very open book to the community, saying, hey, let's collaborate. You helped me early on in my journey when I reached out to you. So thank you for that again. But yeah, hit me up and let's collaborate, because I think there is a lot of growth, but I do feel like authentic conversations for people who've been in the weeds can really help each other and those that are kind of getting into it. So anything we can do, here to help.
Awesome. Mario, where can people find you online, support what you've got going on?
So Instagram, or just Google @painful_profits, because our profits can be painful. We make money, we're happy. Then also you can check our software, our estate plan software, therelaxestate.com, or The Relax Investor, like my book, the bestseller. So The Relax Estate, or @painful profits.
Excellent, excellent. Later this month, I'm launching the third year of my annual campaign to reduce harassment, hate speech, and toxicity, general toxicity in the gaming industry. So everybody, keep your eyes peeled for that. And hopefully, early next year, I'll be working on volume 2 of my book. And so, Brandon, I know that we were trying to work you into the first book. The timing didn't work out. But I'd be honored for you to share some thought leadership there, and for us to highlight the work that you're doing, maybe some micro case studies. We've still got some time before we get that started, but everybody be on the lookout for that as well. My goal in the second book is to make it the digital version free from the jump. The first version, I was just really scared that I wasn't going to make any money back on the book. So I have now made the book free online, but I wish I could have done that from the start. So, like I said, if we can have a blueprint where there's a way that they can get access to it for free, I think that's a net benefit to the entire ecosystem. And I'd be thrilled if you help me with that endeavor.
Yeah, no, I was so excited when you launched the first one. You've been doing amazing things for the community, and it is always appreciated. You got to have the soldiers, right? I consider myself one of them, just on the ground. And then you also have to think bigger thoughts, and getting a book published is certainly one of those things. So I'm grateful for you doing that. Glad to hear version 2 is coming out. And yeah, man, Bruce, thanks for having me on. It's good to see you. Good to meet you, Mario. And we'll keep growing.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. Next week, we have an episode on Tuesday talking about, ecosystem-wide, just groundbreaking announcements for the future of gaming and society. We basically are under NDA, so we can't talk about it yet. But you definitely want to check out next week, noon. So whenever that is, the 12th, I think, or whenever the Tuesday is, Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST. You want to check that out. And other than that, thank you for your time and your support. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Peace.